For that, let's give it up for Rich Thawley.
I was listening to Nicole.
This is gonna be
speak. I was listening to Nicole speak, and Anthony, and of course you heard her tell the story about Anthony proposed to her at a well at a major event. And I just wanted you to know that Sean proposed to me at a convention, and
a couple of times.
And I'm still thinking about it. But after watching video of that entry, I'm just a little bit more reluctant than I was.
I love him, man. He's driven with me before. He knows how scary I am.
That's right. The words "slow down" do not translate to anything he understands when he's driving. Can you hear me okay? That was the secret, what I just, if you can read lips. You don't have to take him out. That does not bother me, the baby crying. I run a base shop. I heard so much crying. It's unbelievable. It's when it shifts the whining and it gets a little bit harder, you know. The crying, I don't mind. There's a great movie called A League of Your Own, and Tom Hanks is in it. That's right. You know, he's coaching, he's a professional baseball player coaching a wings team during World War II when the men are off at war. And he challenges somebody who missed the cutoff man, and, you know, she starts crying. And he goes, "There's no crying in baseball." And I remember when I heard that the first time watching the movie, I thought, man, there's a whole bunch of crying in business. Right? So, I don't mind tears. There's lots of good reasons to shed a tear. Sometimes they're tears of frustration. I have the wrong page. There it is. Before I get into a few comments, I'm not going to overstay my welcome. I want to thank you for being here. Most of you do not live in Dallas. You had to get yourself here. That wasn't free. You have a room, that's not free either. You're eating, that's not free. You're invested in yourself. You've also taken time. Some of you as couples have taken time away from children. You had to make that arrangement. That isn't easy. I just want you to know how much Cindy and I appreciate it. How much we respect you for that. You know, it's the transition from the life we lead to something much different is not an easy thing. To go from an employee mindset, there's nothing sinful about having an employee mindset, so I'm not putting it down. But to shift to an entrepreneurial mindset, to go from short-term thinking, which is what most of us do, to thinking much longer term, these are challenging transitions. And so I am grateful and I want to express it. I wish I could just be looking each one of you in the eye personally and say this to each of you one at a time. Thanks for making the effort. And I'm grateful for everybody who's ever attended a BPM, Zoom or in person, that's ever let us into their home, that talk to them about where they're headed financially. You know, these things are priceless in their way. You know, and the longer I'm in the business, I find myself not more inclined to take it for granted. I'm actually more inclined to really appreciate it. So thank you for that. it's just from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. Thank you for striving to grow. Thank you for just wanting to help someone. Thank you for clapping. I wasn't trying to get you to clap, but thank you for that. Oh, snuggles. You say that every time. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you a minute about the power of one. And I'm going to talk to you about somebody, you know, and if you've heard a podcast or two, then you probably heard me mention the name. I'm talking to you about a guy that none of you know. And you're only going to get to know him now briefly through me, because he passed away in 2018. And his name's Gordon De Leon. Gordon played the music in our wedding. And it was a little bit short notice. The guy was going to play the music, bailed on us, and I called Gordon. She sang, he played the piano, and they're both wonderful people. And I knew them through one of their sons, who I'd become friends with. And we asked for their help, and they were very gracious, and they agreed to do it, and they did a wonderful job. Months later, I get a phone call from him. And he says, "Hey, Rich, I've gotten a life insurance license, and I want to come talk to you." And I was, of course, thrilled. And I said, "Oh, lucky me." But I was newly married. He said, "You just got married, you ought to take a look at this stuff." And he was right. So I said, "Okay, Gordon, come over." And Gordon was a high school music teacher. That's all he'd ever really done. He was part-time in the business, and Gordon was in the business for 7 months, and then he quit. During that time, I think he had 12 clients. We were one of them. For the first time, I heard some things about life insurance that made sense to me. It was term insurance, which is what we needed at the time, because we had $25 available in our budget. That's how tight things were for Cindy and I. And he explained something, two concepts called the time value of money and compound interest. And it was fascinating because we only had $11.59 to put into the side fund. But the projected rate of return, it was going to be $65,000 now at 38 years later. At 65, I'm grateful because that was easy to remember. That was important 4 months later because I was going to drop it. And then I remembered what it would turn into. And then I remembered him saying, "Think long term." This is a part-timer. About the time I'm thinking of dropping the back, he's out of the business. But his words still echoed in my mind. I thought, no. And Cindy and I sat down and we figured out how to squeeze $25. Not 25 more, but the difference between $11.59 and 25. Because I figured out in my mind, well, if this amount was 65, twice that would be 130, maybe 140,000. You could still buy a house in Silicon Valley for 140,000, so it sounded okay to me in 1980. But before that happened, he called after he delivered the policy. As he was leaving, he says, "You ought to come down and take a look at this thing." I said, "Yeah, no," and closed the door. And a couple weeks later, he called again. He says, "Hey, come on," "No." And then he called back a third time. "Yeah, no." And then the fourth time, he calls. He doesn't say anything about coming to the meeting. He goes, "Hey, Rich, do you remember when you called me and you guys needed somebody to play the music in a wedding? And you said, and you asked Donna and I to do that, and we were glad to do it. Do you remember how much we charged you?" "Yeah, that's right, nothing." And so, come to the meeting. Power of one here, you guys. And I'm like, crap. Okay. So I went to Cindy, and hey, we got to go to this meeting. Tuesday night. This thing Gordon's been trying to get us to do. She says, I don't want to go to the meeting. I said, Cindy, do you remember when we were in a bind? This is a true story. I laid exactly the same guilt trip on her, right? That he laid on me. It worked with me, and it worked with her. Now, I wanted her to go, because guys, you know what I mean. If something's bogus and you got your wife along, you got it out. All you need to say to another guy is, she's not feeling good. And you kind of hint it might be that time of the month, and no guy wants to talk about that. And you can get out of whatever situation you're in. I believe you can get out of getting robbed if you work that right. And so I was all set. I expected nothing from this. We come to this little room, there are like 7 people, and we're like 2 of the 7. And we're sitting there, and the guy who was going to do the meeting had to go to a church meeting. And so it's my friend Gordon, right, and this other guy named Bill, and who had a white belt and white shoes, which is just, as far as I'm concerned, an indictment. And they're up there working from cue cards, little index cards, and they're starting to show the comp and the promotion thing, and they actually got in an argument because one had written it down one way, and another had written down another. And we're watching them argue with each other with the presentation half done, and I'm going, these guys are buffoons, right? I mean, they're 2 idiots. I mean, I actually had to use those words in my mind, buffoon and idiot. They're 2 of my favorite words to use in those situations. And we joined right after. It's a true story. What happened between buffoon and the AMA? They finally agreed to disagree and finished the thing and talked about building a team and talked about overrides and talked about, they had already shown us, I already knew how good what we were doing was. I mean, I was a customer. But all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe there is room in this for someone like me. You see, you've had a lot of wonderful speakers, and you'll have more before you're done here today. And, if Ed Marlette were here, it'd just be electric. The guy comes on stage and he vibrates. You're surprised he doesn't fly around the room. And everybody's just like, wow. And he's got these muscles and these tattoos and, and his jawline, and he's just so bitchin', I mean, it's unbelievable. And decided to pull that one out of the 80s for you. And he was like that when I first met him, and that first day. And it's like, he's unbelievable. And he just, when he's done talking, which wall do you want me to run through? Right? It's just epic. And then there's me. I go, what's up? I am living proof. You don't need to be like that. If you got that, that's incredible. You don't got that. Most of us don't. I don't. I'm a private guy. I can't wait to go back to the room and be by myself. I'm not kidding. I love it. I'm going to order room service and try to talk to nobody for about an hour. Then Ed's going to call me like he did just before I got to leave for this room. And all this stuff goes on. And I love it. But it didn't come natural to me. I'm not a really smart guy. I don't have all this intuitive intelligence some people have. When I tell you in my podcast or in person that I took 5 IQ tests from between 5th grade and the end of college, and they all were slightly below average, I really mean it. I don't have this analytical intelligence. I would be a lousy engineer. You would not want to drive across a bridge that I would design. Unless you wanted that brief thrill of flying as it collapses. And Gordon de Leon wasn't fancy either, but he was sincere, and he was a good man. You know, when I joined, you had to get a fingerprint card before you could apply for your exam in California. They changed that, but we had to do it beforehand. So here's Rich Thawley, a future giant of the industry. And Gordon had to call me every couple of days to see if I'd gotten the fingerprint card done. I'd been excited. We filled out the AMA. I even filled out the license application. But you had to get the fingerprint card. He gave me the fingerprint card. He says, I checked Mountain View Police Department. It's a Tuesday and Thursday for 4 hours. They'll do your fingerprint card. It's like only $2. Go and get it and bring it down to the office when you come down next Tuesday, because they only did meetings on Tuesday. I said, okay. First week, didn't do it. He kept calling me, okay, I'll do it. Didn't do it. Next Tuesday, didn't have it. Next Tuesday, didn't have it. You guys, I'm in my 5th week, and I can't get my butt 3 blocks away to go do a fingerprint card. I'm just like everybody else. I'm drifting, I'm procrastinating. Being as broke as we were took time. It took focus, right? You had to distract yourself a lot just to not pay attention to the pain, right? And so, let's watch another movie. Let's go somewhere. Let's do something, right? That doesn't cost anything. But he kept calling me. Thank goodness it wasn't me. I would have gone, screw this guy. I mean, you can't even go get a fingerprint card. What's he going to do in the business? And he finally calls me on a Tuesday, the day it's supposed to, right? I'm going down to the meeting. I'm still going to the meetings. I'm just not doing nothing. That sounds familiar? You know anybody like that? And he just kept talking to me, but he didn't disapprove. He didn't criticize me. He didn't put it down. He was just the right guy. You know why? He was a high school teacher. He worked with young teenagers. He worked with flaky people who can't keep their concentration. And I was one of them. I was 28, going on 12. Praise God, my wife said yes. I still marvel over it to this day, 45 years later. But here's the thing. He kept following me up. So he finally calls me that Tuesday. He said, it's like 1 o'clock or something. He says, Rich, I'm driving up to get your fingerprint card. I said, well, Gordon, I didn't do the fingerprint card. I just didn't have time. I was so swamped with nothing. And I just... He says, I know. But I called the department. You got 2 more hours to go down there. It's Sergeant so-and-so. He seems like a nice guy. I said, well, I've lost the fingerprint card. I didn't know where it is. He says, it's okay. They got extras. All you got to do is go down there. I know it's 3 blocks, and it's like going to New York, but you can do it. Because I'm coming up. He said, well, we're not even going to be here this afternoon. You know, we got errands to run. He says, I don't care. What you're going to do is get a folder, you're going to put it in there, and you're going to lift your doormat up like this. I pictured him doing this on the phone. And you're going to stick it underneath there and put it down. And you know what? I'm going to walk up to your front door, I'm going to lift the doormat. You know what I'm going to find? Your fingerprint card! Woo! I'm excited. The impossible was about to become possible. And he was having fun with me like I was a student in his class. You know, some 15-year-old sophomore doofus. And I went and did the fingerprint card. And I put it under the doormat. And when I got home, I checked, and it was gone. It wasn't until later, much later, after he'd gone and we were talking, he said, you know, I didn't need to come up there. I just came up. He drove an hour and a half each way to make sure I got in my fingerprint card. He said, now tell me when you're taking the test. I'll send you notes. I don't tell him. He has to call me. I said, oh, it's in a few days. He said, let me help you study. So he came up and we got together and we went through the sample test the state provided it. And he helped me. He says, you know what? I'll take that day off. You drive, I'll give you test questions on the drive. That way you don't have to worry about parking in downtown San Francisco. I'll drive the car around while you take the test. It won't take that long. It's 50 questions. I don't know if it's true or false or multiple choice. And I did, and he was out front, and we celebrated. And when you're me, with my background, and I'm a serious partier in college, when I party. And that means we go get a Dr. Pepper. And so, seriously, when I want to buzz, I get a Dr. Pepper. Not two, that's too much buzz. And I don't get the big one, just the regular size can. With ice that you can chew. It's very specific. And we went and got a Dr. Pepper. And my life started. Gordon DeLeon changed my life. It didn't change his. It changed mine. It changed my wife. It changed my kids. It changed my grandchildren. It's changed yours. One person. So I passed my test. I get appointed. It's August 28th, and my SMD has come out from Denver to do a meeting. I've only seen him once. The second time I've seen him. And he gives a meeting. I had a couple people there, and we're sitting down afterwards with a few people, and we're having a little bite to eat after the meeting. And I turned to him, Cindy's with me, and I say, it's going to be my first month, September. What would somebody who's serious, I want to compete, I want to do something, what should I do? Now, this is the power of thinking big. If you don't think bigger, you can't get anybody else to think bigger. Right? Your big has to be ahead of theirs. And so his big was way ahead. He was the number one bass shop in the company. It'd be like Cash Restaurant today. It's the number one bass shop, right? In WFG. And he looks me right in the eye and said, Rich, anybody worth their salt. I remember that phrase. Anybody worth their salt would do 25 recruits and 25 sales their first month of the business. We'll have a lot of people on our team doing it, much less the company. I went, okay. I didn't know any better. Cindy had got me a briefcase. Remember those? They have handles. Now they have shoulder bags and stuff, right? Actually, now they have this. But I put 25 AMAs, everything was paper, and 25 insurance applications. And I was determined to have them all out by the end, because he was coming back in another month. And I was jacked to do it, and I didn't do it. But I did 23 sales and 17 recruits. And don't clap for that. I felt like a loser. Anybody worth their salt would do 25. What are you clapping for, right? And so I'm a little bummed out. And he comes back and says, it's okay. And Cindy's going, we'll do it next month. And I was like, I'm still working full time. I was like, I've run out of words, right? I'm out of ammo. My tongue has dried up. It's just, but okay. We went after it again in a month. And I got 25 sales the second month, only 9 personal. But the team got 9. And we started licensing people. That challenge, right? That leader, who I've been in business with for years and years, that leader thought big enough to challenge me big enough that I can talk about it today, 43 and a half years later, and make an impression on you because I stepped up and went for it and decided to do what? Break the barrier of doubt. Most of you sitting right here, I'm going to challenge you to do 25 personal recruits this year. Not 26 in the first 2 months of your career, but 25 this year. It's a magic number. If you do it several years in a row, you won't believe the good things that are going to happen to you in your business. And most of you think, 25? Some of you have been around a while. I said, I've never done 25 in a year. That's the barrier of doubt. I had someone challenge me. I respected him. I looked up to him. people look up to many of you. Challenge them. Not in a harsh way, not in a grinding way, but challenge them. We don't grow enough if we're not challenged. We live lives of comfort. We do enough to get by. That's kind of the human experience. But we're entrepreneurs now. You own your own life. Take it. Take it. It's yours for the taking. Nobody's here to give it to you. You already got it. God gave you that right. He gave you the right to choose. The war in heaven was fought over choice. The devil wanted to take it away and make you his. God wanted you to choose so you could grow. You are here in this room on a Saturday. Employees don't show up in a room like this on a Saturday. Entrepreneurs show up in a room like this on a Saturday. Every one of you has that same power, Gordon De Leon, exercised in our life. And it changed everything. Everything. We look at the world differently. We look at what's possible in a completely new way. We became self-reliant. It's incredible the feelings that brings. The entrepreneurial experience of taking nothing and turning it into something is unique. And it builds a kind of confidence and perspective that can only be done when you do that. Another moment of the power of one is a guy named Bo Adams, somebody else you don't know. And he's gone too. And Bo was second in command of the first company I was in. And I'd asked him to come to a meeting in January of 1984. And so it's it'll be our fourth full year in the business. It's the year we made $1 million for the first time. And I had no plan to make $1 million. I've been thrilled with 400 or 500 at that point. And he's in the meeting, and we're in this competition for Hawaii. That company was, in 1980, started taking teams to Hawaii. Actually, 81. And now we're going in March, right? 45 years later. And Bo was talking, and I don't remember anything he said before, and I don't remember anything he said after. He talked a couple hours to the team. He said, at some point in your life, you need to set a goal that you think is impossible. And then you've got to do it. And you will never be the same. And your life will never be the same. Tim, that's right. You hear me? You all need to set a goal right now you think is impossible. I'm not asking you to be unrealistic and, and so I said, okay, what do I think is impossible right now? I'm going to make like $28,000 out of it. And that, I think, was the high water mark at that point. And I said, and this competition in Hawaii is on income. And I go, I think it's impossible to make $100,000 from where I'm at right now in a month. Impossible. But all of a sudden the thought got in there. And I don't remember anything else, but I remember this vividly like it was like 10 minutes ago. I took a yellow pad and I started going, well, if I was going to make $100,000, what would have to happen? What would the base shop have to do? I figured out we need to make 400 sales. And I started looking at each of my SMDs, and we started, and I don't go to anybody and go, help me make money. I'm not going to have that conversation with my teammates. I go, okay, what's their high water mark? What's the best they've ever done? What could they break? What goal could they set that was impossible, that when they did it would change their life like this would change mine? And all of a sudden I got in a grip of the vision, because one guy said that one thing. And I mapped it out, and we made 44 the next month, and we made 50-something the next month, and we made $113,000 in April. I thought it was impossible, but it wasn't. And then we did it again, and then we did it again, and then we did it again. And all of a sudden, we're making $1 million. Because one challenge, set a goal you think is impossible, but do it. Sell out to it. Don't take the entrepreneurial route where you're trying to steal second with your foot on first. Your legs ain't long enough. You're going to have to run. It's called getting a jump. And you need to come out of here and get a jump. And it just keeps going as you break the barrier of doubt again and again and again. Let me tell you something that it can turn into. Now listen. In 23, at the end of 23, we really went through everything in our financial planning and our estate planning. I've got some real good advisors, and I bought another major life insurance policy. You know what? 71 life insurance is really expensive. So it's a $4.5 million annual premium, right? How would you like to write that one? Right? And so anyway, I'm still in recovery from that. But we're planning the estate, and we're updating our trust. So we decided to do an irrevocable trust, which means it's irrevocable, right? So you better get it right. And I wanted to reach in the lives of our descendants. Cindy and I want to reach in the lives of our descendants. We've been blessed. There's no guarantee anybody's going to be in our line that's going to be as blessed as we are. For a while, the odds are against it, statistically. But we want to pass on our values, our thoughts on financial stuff, on entrepreneurial stuff, on mental toughness. And so we're recording this stuff, just a private thing for our family, right? Doing this, really working on this project. Then we set up the trust. The trust, from the time Cindy and I are both gone, and it starts, it'll last 360 years. A generation is considered in 30 years. That is 12 generations. And we thought, what do we want to do for our descendants? Because we don't know who they are, but we love them. And they're coming. And I said, okay, first, we want to help them get an education. And education is expensive. We put our kids through college without debt. We're putting our grandchildren through college without debt. We help our children into homes so they didn't have house payments. And they had to be living right, making good choices, or I'd give them a 10 and a shovel. And so there's criteria set up for this in the trust with our committees, our investment committee, our business committee, the review committee. We wanted to do 4 things for our descendants. One, we wanted to give them a college education without debt, a 4-year college education. So we said, okay, what is the University of California expense for an education? It's $42,000 times 4. We'll adjust for inflation every year, but according to what the stats are, the bottom line is every one of our descendants for the next 12 generations will have a college education or a vocational, whatever they choose, on us. Now you're going to have to stay in school, and you're going to have to get the grades, and then we'll get you the next year, and then you'll keep performing again. You can't be a slacker, flake, doofus, right? And then you get it again, and you get through college, and we'll cover it. What do we want to do next? We want to strengthen marriage. We want to strengthen marriage in our downline, in our descendants. So they will be able to come to the trust and apply for half the cost of the average wedding in the United States. Right now, it's like $31,000. So that's $15,500 they'll have access to, and that'll adjust every year for inflation and cost. But we want to strengthen marriage. In order to get a dime for anything, they got to go through the continuing education from their great grandparents. 12 generations from now, they're going to be listening to us, assuming the second coming hasn't happened in the meantime. Then it's okay, right? But the reality is, we want to strengthen marriage. They say, well, what if we just live together and we're really happy? Great. No money. May marriage, real marriage. It's a sacred thing. It's a covenant. And it's a big deal. So we're going to support that. What's the third thing? We want to get them into a house. So we will take half, like if you're in California, the average house is $850,000. Not in my neighborhood, not in a lot of other places I know in Silicon Valley. But the average cost of a house is $850,000. We'll cover half that. That'll be their down payment. Now, if they find a house at $425,000, we'll pay off the whole house. But we'll cover half the house. And the last thing is entrepreneurship. They can apply for $100,000, today's dollars, to help them start a business. They'll have to go through a Shark Tank experience. If they show up and say, I want to mine gold in Africa. What do you know about mining? Nothing. What do you know about gold mining? Nothing. What do you know about Africa, the country you're thinking about? Nothing. No. Zero. Zero for that. All right? Go buy a Denny's franchise or something like that. Right? So they'll have to do a Shark Tank. But think about it. Because Gordon De Leon introduced us to the time value of money, the power of compound interest, and then invited us to a meeting. For Cindy and I, our great grandchildren will have an education, will have support in their wedding, can get into a house, and can start a business. And we are reaching through 360 years to bless their lives, to the blessings that have been poured into ours. I know this is thinking a little bigger than you're registering right now, but that means if I were 12 generations deep from a great, he would have set that up in the 1600s. Think bigger. Think bigger. Think bigger. If you had 10 million in a trust and it compounded over 100 years at the average rate of return of the S&P index, you know how much it would be? $20 billion at 100 years. 100 million turns into $219 billion in 100 years. At about 10%, a little bit less. Think bigger. Think bigger. I know it hurts your mind right now to think this way, but start. Start. Don't limit yourself. Break the barrier of doubt. Believe. Believe in yourself. Believe in your teammates. Believe in your leadership. Believe in the company. But most of all, in the one you can trust absolutely. Believe in God. He thinks big. He will help you think big. And let's go build a great life and a great family and impact you and your family for generations. I look at our family and say, if you're fortunate enough to be born in our family, actually my son-in-law said this, I was talking about it, he's married my daughter, that's what son-in-laws typically do, they marry daughter. I gotta say, I'm not brilliant, just below average. But I kept going, and I kept thinking bigger, and I kept believing. And everything was transformed in our lives. I watched it happen in so many others. I know it can happen in yours. Pay the price, get in, dig in, and make 24 your year of transformation. And we'll be here right every step with you. God bless you all.